In November of 1930, a fur trapper named Joe LaBelle was making his usual route through the frozen wilderness of northern Canada. He had passed through the Inuit village on the shores of Anjikuni Lake dozens of times before. He knew the people there. He knew their names. He knew the smell of their fires, the sound of their dogs, the way the children would run out when they heard a sled approaching. But on this night, there were no children. There were no dogs. There was no smoke. There was no sound. Joe LaBelle walked into a village of over 1,000 people, and every single one of them was gone. The fires was still warm. The food was still cooking over the flames. The kayaks were still tied at the shore. The rifles, the tools every Inuit man depended on to survive the Canadian winter were still leaning against the tent walls. No one had packed. No one had prepared. No one had left a note or a trail or a single footprint leading away from the village. They were simply gone. And in the 95 years since that night, no one has ever found them. No one has ever explained what happened. And no one, not the Canadian government, not the RCMP, not a single investigator, has ever officially closed this case. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you are going to hear the one detail that investigators found at that village, a detail that has never appeared in any documentary, any news report, or any book on this case, and it will change the way you think about this story entirely. On this channel, I go deep on the true stories that get buried, the cases that governments close without answers, the events that historians call inconclusive, the nights that entire communities try to forget. Tonight, we're in northern Canada, 1930, and we're going to go through every piece of evidence, every theory, and every official response to this case, because I want you to understand not just what happened at Anjikuni Lake, but why the explanation you've probably heard before doesn't hold up, not even close. To understand what was lost that night, you first need to understand what Anjikuni was. Anjikuni Lake sits in the Kavalik region of what is now Nunavut, in the far north of Canada, about 500 miles northwest of Churchill, Manitoba. In 1930, the nearest town of any size was days away by sled. The Inuit community that lived on those shores had been there for generations. These were not nomadic travelers passing through. This was a permanent, established village with structure, with routine, with history. The people there were experienced Arctic survivors. They understood cold in a way most of us will never comprehend. They understood that to leave your weapons, your food, your fire in the middle of a Canadian winter was not just unusual, it was a death sentence. And yet, Joe LaBelle arrived at Anjikuni Lake on the evening of November 3rd, 1930. He had been traveling since dawn. He was cold, tired, and looking forward to a warm fire and familiar faces. He called out as he approached, as he always did. Nothing. He walked closer. The tent flaps were closed against the cold, the way they always were at night. He assumed the villagers were inside, sleeping. He pushed open the first tent. Empty. He checked the next. Empty. He walked the length of the entire village, tent to tent, structure to structure, calling names he recognized, calling in Inuktitut, calling in English. Not one person answered. And that's when Joe LaBelle noticed the details that would follow him for the rest of his life. The cooking pots over the fires, still full, still warm. Whoever had been preparing that meal had walked away from it mid-cook. The sewing needle still threaded, sitting beside unfinished garments, as if the person sewing had simply looked up and stepped outside for a moment. The personal belongings, the items that Inuit families carried everywhere and never left behind, sitting exactly where they had been left. But most disturbing of all, the rifles. Every hunter in that village owned a rifle.
In the Canadian Arctic in 1930, a rifle was not a weapon. It was the difference between eating and starving, between surviving the winter and dying in it. Not a single rifle had been taken. They were all still there, standing against the tent walls, loaded. Joe LaBelle did not sleep that night. He turned his sled around and rode through the darkness toward the nearest telegraph station, a journey that took him hours in the cold, and sent a message to the RCMP. 3 words: everyone is gone. The RCMP response was immediate. Within days, a team of officers had made the journey to Anjikuni Lake and begun what would become one of the most unusual investigations in Canadian history. What they found confirmed everything LaBelle had reported and added new details that made the mystery significantly darker. The first thing investigators documented was the state of the food stores. In Inuit culture, food preservation was survival. Smoked meats, dried fish, canned supplies. Every community maintained stores that could last an entire winter. The food stores at Anjikuni were full. Whoever had been left this village had not taken enough food to survive 3 days in the open Canadian wilderness in November, with temperatures already below zero. The second thing investigators found were the dogs. Sled dogs in the Arctic are not pets. They are working animals, essential for transportation, essential for hunting, essential for survival. The Anjikuni dogs were found staked at the edge of the village where they had been tied. They were starving. Several had already died. They had been tied there before their owners vanished, and no one had come back to feed them. This single detail destroyed the most obvious explanation, that the village simply relocated. You do not relocate in the Arctic and leave your dogs behind. You do not leave the animals that will pull your sleds. It is not possible. The third thing investigators found was the cemetery. And this is the detail that no official report has ever been able to explain. At the edge of the village, there was an Inuit burial ground, the graves of the community's ancestors, the people who had lived and died on those shores for generations before. Every single grave had been opened, not disturbed, not vandalized, opened, deliberately, methodically. The bodies had been removed, not scattered, not dragged, removed as if someone carefully, purposefully taken every corpse from every grave and carried them away. The investigators stood in that cemetery in the frozen November wind and had no explanation. They still don't. In the years since 1930, 4 major theories have been offered to explain what happened at Anjikuni Lake. I'm going to walk you through each one, and I'm going to show you exactly why each one fails. Theory 1: voluntary relocation. This is the simplest explanation, that the village simply decided to move, perhaps following game, perhaps escaping a threat, and that the mystery was exaggerated by later accounts. It sounds reasonable until you look at the evidence. Inuit communities in 1930 did relocate, but they did not relocate without their weapons. They did not relocate without their food stores. They did not relocate without their dogs. And they did not relocate in November, the beginning of the most dangerous season in one of the most dangerous environments on Earth. Voluntary relocation does not explain the opened graves. No Inuit tradition or cultural practice involves exhuming the bodies of ancestors before a community moves. Theory 1 does not survive contact with the evidence. Theory 2: epidemic or disease. Perhaps a sudden illness swept through the village, one so fast and so severe that it caused mass death, and the bodies were simply never recovered. The problem with this theory is straightforward. There were no bodies. A disease outbreak, even a catastrophic one, does not make people disappear. It leaves the dead where they fall. Furthermore, a disease that kills or incapacitates over 1,000 people simultaneously in a matter of hours would need to be something entirely unknown to medicine, then or now, and it still would not explain the opened graves. Theory 2 does not survive contact with the evidence. Theory 3, forced displacement. Some historians have suggested that the anjikuni disappearance was the result of forced relocation by Canadian government authorities, a practice that did occur with Inuit communities throughout the 20th century. But there are problems. Forced relocations were documented, eventually. The communities that were displaced can be traced. The people can be found in records, in new locations, in government files. The anjikuni community cannot be found anywhere. No relocation record, no resettlement record, no death record, no survivor record. Over 1,000 people do not vanish from government records, even when the government is trying to hide something.